Journey to Healing, Reaching Women with a Desperate Cry is an 8-week Zoom seminar in which Kamala and Winston help women to start living their best life by rediscovering the image of God in their life. Kamala, a licensed marriage and family therapist, joins her husband of 16 years, an ordained pastor, to marry the clinical and the spiritual. You will begin living your best life filled with love, joy, and peace. Register at kwministries.net for this life-changing seminar.
So anxious resistant. So remember there were 4 categories, right?
Mm-hmm.
So anxious resistant kids were on the opposite end of the spectrum. They didn't have a lot of self-confidence. They really clung to their caregivers, whether it's parents. When I say caregivers, I mean parents, grandparents, just old people in their lives who were, really part of that initial bonding experience. For these kids, they tended to have really exaggerated emotional reactions to stuff, but they also kept the distance from their peers. How did this translate into adulthood? That translated into anxious, preoccupied adults. Mm-hmm. And so they kind of formed less secure bonds with partners and feel really desperate for love and affection.
God is patient. God is kind. God is long-suffering. God never fails. God always hopes. God always trusts. God always perseveres. God doesn't envy. God doesn't boast. God doesn't seek his own, but is always seeking what's best for you. God rejoices in the truth.
That's right.
God doesn't define love. God demonstrates love.
Pastor, I finished the book last night. Oh my goodness. Man, I'm gonna have my niece read it some more today. But I couldn't put it down. What a powerful read. Your daughter did a phenomenal job in that writing. That was so good. Oh, the story was so, I could put myself in it in so many different ways, and wow, it was well written. I mean, I could not put it down. I was up with that book till midnight last night. I was like, whoa, I'm not putting it down. I was like, I wanted more. And I really love how she incorporates her spiritual life and the choices that she make.
Good evening, everyone.
Welcome back. I know you have missed us from live.
That's live, right? We're doing replays.
But we're excited to be back here again for our awesome Monday nights with KW.
I am super, super excited about tonight, and I'm excited about the discussion.
Yes.
I don't know if exciting is the word to use based on what we're going to be talking about, but I think it's a very important conversation. So how are you doing, Kamala? What is KW? Catch us up to speed.
All right. If you are joining us for the very first time, KW Ministries is a passion-driven ministry.
There you go.
Passion-driven because we discovered in our own lives that, guess what? Sometimes you have challenges.
Desperate cries.
Desperate cries. And sometimes as you navigate those desperate cries, you can actually find yourself on a healing journey instead of a journey of more desperation.
That's right. That's right.
And so out of that, we wanted to come together and we wanted to explore with people just like us, people like you, what it meant to journey through something really challenging and get to the other side of that. Mm-hmm. And we've had some really great discussions. I feel like we've talked to so many people about their life's journey, things that they've been through, things that they've experienced, and not necessarily how they've gotten to the other side, because some of our guests have been mid-journey.
Yes.
That conversation to be able to walk alongside each other, to have those vulnerable conversations, like to move from one aspect of my life to another. Mm-hmm. And so our ministry is just about having a platform together.
That's right. That's right. The point of our shop, our Monday night discussion, is that not just are we having conversations, but we're actually inviting people to visit net.
Took over from me this time.
So net, and if you would please check out our store and see what we have there. So I'm really about stickers, or wish we had our stickers to show. We have girl empowerment stickers, and we're really excited about that. Tonight we have a very special guest with us. Pastor Jones, Pastor Benjamin Jones is our tonight. Pastor Jones, a pastor, someone that I almost, I think, over 20 years. Mm-hmm. He was my teacher, my pastoral ministry teacher when I was at Oakwood University, and he has been someone who is trustworthy. He's been someone who is dependent. I heard him at a for where he is, and everyone with his workforce, a business, but because that's how he is, genuinely love for people. Upon meeting my family, my wife and children, he's adopted them as a part of his family. And so we're really, I think we have one of the best voices. We have one of the best voices for this particular discussion tonight. We're going to talk about a journey through collective healing. We have all been in a lot of pain as a country, as a world. And tonight we're going to talk about that with Pastor Jones and talk about how do we go about healing. So we would like to give away, we want to give away I'd like to make the prize, Kamala. It's
a comment as we're discussing tonight, as we're interacting with Elder Jones, you to ask, make comments, and the more you comment, is the more likely you are to win.
Right. Comment, and then the end of it we'll do is we'll put your name in Annika will put in
Little raffle.
our little raffle. Raffle. But times our draw and your name comes out, you'll win. So please, as we talk tonight, talk with us, engage us in the comment section, whether you're on our YouTube channel or any of the Facebook channels. All right. So let's take a quick break. We'll come right back with Pastor Benjamin Jones. Or maybe we're not going to take a break.
I created the Sickle Cell Coloring Book for Kids because just like you, I was worried about my child's sickle cell diagnosis. I had so many questions that I needed answered. This coloring book answers how sickle cell affects the body. It shares terms that will help you understand what's going on so you will be empowered.
We're back. We're back. Except we just saw that the Elder Jones left us for a second, but I'm pretty we'll come right back in technology is
So maybe we could talk a little bit about what we're hoping to discuss. You start a lot of collective experiences, and how that's impacted us as people, how it's impacted our world.
Right, and the things that I'd love to walk through with Elder Jones once he comes back, is just the whole idea of challenges that our world is currently going through. And if you can think about a challenge, we're going through it. One of the big ones that inspired this program was the topic was Uvalde shootings.
Mm-hmm.
And in that now we're learning that on top of the fact that the gunman, a murderer, slaughtered and murdered these children, on top of that is we are learning that they necessarily have to die like that. We're learning that the gunmen that murdered were in there killing the people, and people were just standing on doing nothing because they weren't communicating. Can you imagine the amount of pain that has added to those parents?
Yeah. And I think when you talk about how collective that experience is for us, whether you have kids of your own, whether you're an aunt, an uncle, a friend, in some way, shape, or form, when you have these experiences where people are lost due to tragic and untimely events, hits.
Here, Pastor Jones. Can you hear us?
I can hear
Good
you.
Evening, sir. Good
Good
evening, sir.
evening,
How are
sir.
you?
Good evening. I'm doing well. Doing well.
Good, good. I know you were just on vacation. How was that? How was your time in Florida?
I enjoyed being on the beach with my grandchildren and just having nothing to do for 7 days was a wonderful experience.
Oh, hallelujah. Congratulations.
We're really excited. You want uh, your voice.
You're coming and going with me.
Yes,
I got
there's the the internet is misbehaving. But but what we wanted to talk with you about, sir, is the collective grief that we're going through. And what do we mean by the collective grief that we're going through?
So we've experienced in not just recent times, but we've been experiencing over a period of time a lot of tragic losses. One of the inspirations for tonight's show in particular was the shooting, and inspiration is such a tough word to use to describe it, but the shooting that happened in Uvalde and how that impacted not just that community, but has impacted us as a country. And it hasn't been the only incident of that
Since then,
nature that has occurred before or since then.
right? And since then, you're talking about July 4th.
Mhm.
You had that. Then you're talking about the mall. I think this was just when Friday. This a mall in another state, and then you had an accident in one of those states where the dust came because of the dust, a whole bunch of cars crashed and 6 people died. You have the war in Ukraine, you have the pandemic that's going on, and then they say this variant spreads even faster. Pastor Jones, it's too much.
All of us have a sense of being overwhelmed.
Yeah.
And for me, as I hear about the pains and the tragedy, it taps into all my personal tragedies that
Yes.
of deaths and loss over a series of years.
Mhm.
So I not only sympathize with those who just lost somebody, or some parent who has a child shot in a parade. It brings me back to my father shot and killed.
Mm-hmm.
Mhm.
It brings me back to my 25-year-old cousin who opened a business in Detroit. And on the birthday of a friend of his, he invited his friend to his place of business, a restaurant. A fight took place in the restaurant, and when my cousin went to break it up, somebody who was fighting shot him to death when he walked out the door. So things that were in the past I have not thought about for years.
Mhm.
These
Mm-hmm.
recent pieces brings me back I relive things. I'm sure people who I was in a meeting uh, in Florida where one of my pastor friends talked about how every 5 years was a major loss. His father died. 5 years later, his sister died. 5 years later, his older brother died. And every 5 years, it was a major loss in his family. And they were thinking with these other losses, when is this going to stop? I talked to
Mm-hmm.
another pastor whose father was a preacher. And so father gets palsy, which is a slow death. Mother
Mhm.
gets dementia, which is a slow
Mm.
death. And he said, to be honest, my parents had spent their life serving others and serving God. And why would God let my father contract a disease that will slowly make him unable to use his body? And why would the Lord allow my mother to get a brain
Mhm.
disease, dementia, that her body
Yeah.
was fine, but it ends up like she was a shell of the person she used to? So then while he was talking, he talked about his sister in law had a brother who was deathly ill and not far from there. So as he's trying to overcome recent deaths, things keep happening that keeps bringing back the question all of his belief system.
Yeah.
Where is God about this? What do you do about these kind of things? Uh, and after a while, for me, as death and sickness and loss began to be back to back, I had two realities. I don't know if you can identify with that. Part of me goes numb. Well, so I departmentalize my pain and stick it in a shelf someplace emotionally so I won't feel it. So I can go about some kind of normalcy. And then I shut the door with that. But I'm recognizing that room is piling up. And at some point I have to open the door so that pain can come out.
Yeah.
But because I can't control that pain and I can feel the pressure on that door, I just keep putting stuff in there versus saying, one day you have to deal with that piece.
Yeah.
But my other challenge as a preacher is that I am ministering to other hurting people. One of my gifts, and that gift is also a weakness, is my ability to experience empathy, which means I don't only mentally walk into your situation, but I actually set myself in your situation where I feel your pain. And I've had a number of crises and issues in my own personal life that I can actually say to somebody, I can't feel exactly what you feel, but I've had similar experiences, and that ability for empathy allows me to connect with people in a healing way. But not only do I connect with them, I carry their pain.
Yeah.
And once I carry their pain, it feels like I have a backpack that has rocks in it. And then there's a sense as a male, I was socialized that real men don't cry, and real men don't complain. And you have to be strong for your children, for your wife, for your community. And so weakness in times of crisis is seen as something that's negative. You're able to, it's okay to have a tear through, but don't get depressed. Don't fall out because you're supposed to process that.
Yeah.
And the thing that we as Christians have to deal with, we have sold the idea that Christians shouldn't have problems. Or Christians shouldn't have pain. And so if you're having problems, we fall back into the Old Testament idea that the reason you have problems is you're bad. You must have done something to have problems.
Yeah.
If you're really praying right, if you're reading your Bible every day, if you're going to church every weekend, if you're serving others, you wouldn't really have that, because the God that they talk about is a rescue God that comes in like Superman and wipes things away and makes everything well. Well, when I read the Bible, that's not the biblical Bible God I know. He doesn't come as a Superman to rescue you from the consequences of a sinful world, but promises that he'll walk beside you through all your pain.
Wow. Kamala, Pastor has said a whole bunch.
Yes. There were a couple of things that really stood out to me that I think many people can relate to. First of all, it's talking about how the collective experiences that we have trigger our own internal past history.
Yes.
And what that creates in terms of kind of the emotional, I don't want to use the word baggage, but the emotional backpack, if you will.
Right. He said the rocks.
The rocks,
right.
yeah. And how challenging that is.
I'm thinking about the shootings. Well, somebody who lost a child through that, then that triggers that for that person. So let's spend a few moments to talk about now, what do we do with this triggering effect for the people that are being triggered by these things? What do we do and I want to come back to talk about the compartmentalization. I want to come back to talk about the whole idea of empathy. How do we feel for people? I want to come back to discuss the whole idea of real men don't cry and Christians shouldn't have pain. And I think we're gonna need more than an hour. But let's take some time though to talk about this idea of what happens to us now when we're triggered. Again, please join us. Something was said earlier where Vivia said, "Wow." Please join us in the discussion out there. Let's talk about this idea of this all this that's happening. It's triggering to my personal stuff.
Yeah. Pain by itself is a word that we use to describe a lot of tumultuous emotions, I feel like. It's used to describe loneliness, disappointment, fear, and hurt itself. And so I guess my question for you, Pastor Jones, as you've noticed that as well for yourself, and for those people who are listening along who are noticing that for themselves, what do you do when those tumultuous emotions come up?
You asked us nice questions. First, I think of pain in a couple ways. I want to say pain is a blessing. Physically, for instance, if you could not feel pain, you would put your hand on a hot plate and your hand would burn if the pain did not warn you that you were in danger.
Yeah.
If you did not feel pain when you had some internal organ acting crazy, you would never go to the doctor. So pain is a warning about deeper things are going on. So when I feel that emotional pain and mental pain, it's like tapping me on my shoulder and saying, look a little deeper.
Yeah.
Why are you feeling this? What's really going on? I'll give you an example. When my father, who was an alcoholic, used to beat my mother, I would feel helpless. And when my mother cried out, and in my family of birth that I grew up in, we as children were not allowed to engage in the adult issues. We could see it, we could hear it, but we couldn't deal with it. We're not allowed to interfere with it. So when I would feel that pain, I felt that pain because of guilt. How could you, as a kid, let your mother go through that by herself? And I felt I should be doing something. And because I didn't do anything, I felt guilty and helpless. So as I get to be an adult, when I see other issues, I think I couldn't fix my mother's stuff, but maybe I can fix my member's stuff. Maybe I can fix the person in the hospital stuff. I remember as a hospital chaplain, I'd go to the hospital and they said, "Pastor, pray for me," and I'd pray for them, and I anticipated I could heal everybody who I prayed for. Well, I quit praying for that kind of miracle healing because I was cognizant that everybody would not get out of that hospital well. But I started praying for strength for them and wholeness for them and help for them, that they would not be lonely as they move through that process. So when I come against those kind of situations, I begin to look deeper. When my father was shot and killed, I was angry because I never got a chance to make things right with him. I wanted to tell him how angry I was about the way he treated my family. But I had a love-hate relationship. I loved him and hated him at the same time. And as a Christian, I felt bad about hating him. And I carried that backpack a long time. So that when somebody else got killed, when my cousin got shot and killed, when one of my members got a drive-by, I I couldn't fix it, but I recognized it was not my job to fix it. That what I needed in a time of pain was a listener, not one
Mm,
who would condemn me, but
mm,
someone I could talk to and share that pain with, who could identify with it, and who would just allow me to empty
mm,
that pain without saying, some nice phrase. The Lord will be with you.
mm,
Mm-hmm. The
Be
pleasantries.
strong. Be strong, brother. Well, no, I know the Lord's with me, but it's like I got hit by an 18-wheeler. The Lord was with me, but I'm still hit by the 18-wheeler. it's,
mm,
it's
Mm-hmm,
like
mm-hmm.
somebody come in and give their heart to Christ with a broken leg, and they come up on their crutches. I'm so glad you gave your heart to God. Yeah, you gave your heart to God, but your leg was broken, and until that
mm,
process of therapy happens, you will not be completely dealt with. But it's good to know that somebody sees that brokenness and will walk with you through that process of being healed.
mm,
So
Yeah.
if I could find one or two people who, in my time of pain, I can be honest with and share with, that process by itself helped. I didn't need solutions at the time. I need compassion and caring. And so I've learned the ministry of presence. When
mm,
somebody dies or something happens, when I was a chaplain, I could walk into a room. I remember a family was on their vacation, and their oldest girl, about 15 and 16, got sick, and so the father took the daughter to the emergency room while the rest of the family was already packed to go on this vacation. They
mm,
thought she had gas or something light, and the doctor would give her some medicine. That child died 2 hours later.
Mm.
That family was devastated. I knew them well. When I stepped into the emergency room with the father and the mother and the younger kids, who's now their teenage daughter or sister is dead, I had nothing smart to say,
mm,
but I held the mother while she cried.
mm,
I sat by the father while he cried.
mm,
And I embraced the children, the younger children, while they cried and shook. And I made a safe space where they could allow their emotions to pour without any kind of condemnation and without any kind of me giving them some little short answer.
mm.
Yeah.
After it was all over, they thanked me for what I had done, and all I had done was to be there.
Right, right,
And
right.
and, and people have not really recognized the power of being present in somebody's pain, not
Mm,
just hearing them, but actually being there for them and allowing them to, whatever way they want to deal with their grief, to deal
Yeah.
with it.
So, Kamala, I heard again. I heard a few things
Mm-hmm.
that I want for in as we grieve collectively.
Mm-hmm.
I hear Pastor Jones say two things. One, we need to express.
Yes.
We need to talk. We need to speak about what it is that we're feeling.
Mm-hmm.
But then I heard him say a second thing. We need to be there for each other. Vivia just said sometimes presence
It's all that is needed.
is all that's needed. Right. So that's what I hear, that as we go through these tragedies,
Mm-hmm.
we need to be able to express ourselves. What I'd like to ask is, what are some of the things that we need to, how do we express ourselves? Many of us don't know how to express ourselves. How do we express ourselves?
I would caution to say, before we get to express ourselves, is to recognize that in that initial moment of grieving, sometimes there are not words
Right.
articulate in that moment.
Right.
I would say before we even get to, we make room for each other in the way that Pastor talked about, in terms of creating a
A
space
space.
where it can happen.
So here's the question, Pastor Jones. As we grieve collectively and from a pastoral and a spiritual perspective, Kamala just pointed out that sometimes we're not able to articulate what it is that we're feeling. Go a step further. In not being able to articulate what we're feeling, many times we say the wrong stuff. Many times we say we hate God, or where is God, or what kind of God is this, or God is not real, when we're going through. My 14-year-old, Pastor Jones, asked me the other day, Dad, could it be that we made up Jesus to make ourselves feel better as we go through these very difficult and challenging stuff? How does the church give room? How does God give room, Pastor Jones, for those who are articulating, and Kamala said, not able to articulate, and so sometimes we articulate maybe the wrong stuff or the not popular stuff. We're not saying God is good right now. How do we how do we create that kind of safe space for people to be able to not articulate or articulate the wrong stuff?
You're asking easy questions. First, I want to go back to this. When somebody's having pain and going through stuff, we have to be careful that we don't rob them of the moment. What I'm talking about. You have a crisis. Your child is sick. I come into the presence. Oh, your child is sick, Pastor. You know, my child was sick like that in 1925. And so now I talked to you about my child being sick. I never stopped to hear what you had to say. And so I stole the moment from you. I told you about my child being sick and about my victory, and that child was doing well. But that didn't help you, because I gave you no opportunity to be. This is your moment.
Yeah.
In your moment, you should. I find that there's more talking by nonverbal language than verbal language. So it's not required
to say something.
So if I walked into your presence and you were deeply grieving and about to cry, I wouldn't tell you not to cry. If we were close enough, I would come and just hold you and let you cry on me. And ask you if you want to talk. You may want to talk, or you may not want to talk. It's your moment. What do you need in that moment? You may be ready to cuss God out. I'm not trying to defend God. Well, no, God's not like that. This is not an intellectual issue. This is an emotional issue. Right now, you're mad at God. Right now, you don't understand God. Right now, you think God betrayed you. I'm going to let you say all that about God. Guess what? God is big enough to receive your emotions on any moment. And that just me being able to say those things, because I know there's a disconnect between your religious understanding and your emotional experience. So, as a people, as a church, as Christians, we need to be there for people. Now, we don't really like to be there for people. Like I said earlier,
we want to steal it.
When I step into your situation, it brings me back to all my situations, and I haven't resolved my situations yet. So I'm gonna stay away from you, because now stuff I should have handled, I'm reminded about that, and now I'm feeling stuff I thought I was okay with. So the other piece is, what really helps me is my worldview and biblical background that says, because bad things happen today does not change my mind about God, because I've had such track record with God over, I'll be 75 in September. All kinds of stuff has happened to me in these 74 years. And I keep track of how God's doing. I take score how God's doing. And based on my score, he comes up pretty good. In fact, uh, he he wins more than loses for me.
Mm-hmm.
And then when I look back to how I responded to issues, he always sent somebody. Um, when my father died, my mother was only a marginal Christian. My pastor, who was not her pastor, stepped into that experience and protected my mama, was with her every day until he buried my dad. She never forgot that this pastor, who was not her pastor, became her friend.
Yeah.
He didn't preach a sermon to her. He didn't share the state of the dead with her. He just showed up at the house, and he became insulated her from people who were coming in to our home trying to take advantage of her. Answered the phone for her, gave her the space for her to try to make the emotional adjustment. She never forgot him for that. He moved on to some other place, but in her estimate, he was one of the greatest men that ever came to her, because in a time of crisis, he was there for her genuinely, and for me. So, in a collective way, we have to be sure we have to be mindful that that moment is their moment, not ours, and we allow them to do and be whatever they need in that moment. Now, there will come a time they'll ask you some questions, but when those questions come, you've got to give honest answers. You got to say it's okay to be mad with God. You can cuss him out if you want to. Just at the end of all your emoting, remember that he's the same God who helped you through the last crisis. And that as you look at as you look at the Bible, you recognize, if I had written the Bible, I'd only written the good stories. The heroes who were perfect and never had any problems, and God came through and rescued them. Oh, it'd be a great book, but it wouldn't be real. The Bible is real. Here's David, great killed Goliath, but he's also an adulterer, a murderer, had a host of women. God shows everything, and still God loves us. And then in the book of Job, that talks about the agency behind the darkness, whose outside of consequences is working against us. So my worldview helps me to understand some of this stuff happens because of me. Some of this stuff happens because of the nature of this world around me. Some of this stuff happens because the devil is coming at us. But at the end of the game, the Bible says God is still good and still just, and will work that thing out. And I've seen the Lord actually, for me, work things out. For instance, Kamala, I didn't get a chance to talk to my dad about how I hated him. One day, the Lord impressed me to put a chair in a dining room, an empty chair, put my dad in that chair. And Winston, I talked to my dad for about 2 hours. And told him everything that I would have told him if he was alive. Then I cried. But when I got to emptying that garbage that I'd been carrying since I was 18, I was free. It was the Lord who told me. No doctor. I didn't have the advantage of having a tremendous person like your wife available to me at that time. I didn't have common sense. But the Lord who counseled me, directed me to how to my healing. And I've seen that happen over and over again. And then as we learn stuff about situations and broader facts, sometimes it doesn't change the pain, but it helps us understand.
Yes.
And that helps. So that alcoholic person who beat my mother, I recognize that my father never had a father. And he only had an 8th grade education. So his way of healing his own pain was to drown it in alcohol. And so he couldn't deal with life's reality. He had no tools. No one taught him about God. Everybody who was religious in his background were hypocrites. So he was doing the best he could with what he had. And when I understood that after he had died, it helped me handle it better. It didn't stop the pain. It didn't stop and the brokenness that came from it. But I recognize now that he was a victim also.
Yeah.
And besides being a victimizer.
Mm-hmm.
And so those kinds of things assist us as the Lord unfolds things to us.
Mm-hmm. That's good. That's real good. I heard him say that when somebody is going through pain, it's not time for a Bible study, for
The cliches.
the cliche. It's not time for, well, if you had, but we need to give people space. And when come around to ask the questions, then Vivian said, allow persons to invite you into their moment. I heard him say, importantly, don't steal the show.
Yeah.
It's not my time to talk about. There's something that he said, Kamal, that I'd like for you to explore a little bit for us clinically, because I think we talked about something similar to this in a different way. Is that empty chair? Is that empty chair? Comment on that a little bit.
I thought that was such a beautiful thing that you shared, Elder Jones, because that is something that is so healing when you haven't had the opportunity to express things that you needed to say to somebody who is already gone. And one of the reasons why it's so effective is that it's kind of speaking to what you talked about earlier, where we tend to compartmentalize stuff. We tend to put it all away in these, what we hope are neat and tidy little boxes, except that's not how it works, because what we're putting in there is liquid. It's going to come all flowing out. So we do that in an effort to cope with something that's not the way to cope with it.
It's not healing.
Essentially. Packing it away in that little compartment in our minds doesn't heal it. It just packs it away for longer.
Or it manifests differently.
So being able to verbalize, even if I don't get that feedback, but being able to verbalize, here was my experience, here's how this impacted me, here's what this felt like, here's what I've carried, just to be able to say those things out loud, like Pastor Jones talked about it. And you correct me if I'm right or wrong, but I think what I heard you saying is that it allowed you to ventilate those things, but it also allowed you to process it differently, to where after you went through that process, you were able to say, yeah, these things weren't okay, but they came from a place of hurt for this person as well. They were dealing with their own demons.
So let me ask you both another question, because we're talking about collective grief.
Yeah.
Can I put these murderers in a chair and talk to them? Can I have that same? Because again, and Ella Jones talked about the triggering of these things happening, but can I get some relief if the one that got me the most is the Uvalde? They're all full, but because I have a 8-year-old, we have an 8. I'm sorry, right? We have an 8-year-old, so that did exactly what Ella Jones said. It triggered. What if it was my child that was at school, so forth and so on. So, can I put that gun in a chair, and can I get some healing from doing that, or does it have to be a more intimate relationship, or can that be done in a general?
It's hard to generalize that.
Okay.
But at the same time, something that I take away from what we've discussed already is that, one, we have to sit with, how has this made us feel?
Right.
Ask ourselves the why. What is this bringing up for me? Where's this coming from? For us, as we watched Uvalde unfold, for us, there was this pain, there was this hurt, there was this fear that came from, oh my gosh, I also have kids that age and that could happen to us. And so being able to say, okay, I and it's important to know the difference here. I sympathize, but I also recognize my own internal struggle here. And as we try to heal together, now it's sitting down, it's having these open spaces, these inviting conversations, which don't necessarily have to start off as conversations, but start off as just, here we are, here's what's wrong, here's what we feel, whether it's anger, whether it's fear, whether it's pain, whether it's hurt, whatever it is, and opening up that space. Pastor Jones talked about empathy earlier. And one of the things for us to recognize is that empathy doesn't mean I come in saying I'm empathizing with you.
Right.
Because people will remember not what you said, did in those moments, they'll remember how you made them feel.
What's the difference, Pastor Jones, between empathizing with someone and stealing the show?
Stealing the show is a matter of making my feelings, my experience, the primary thing we're talking about.
Yeah.
If it would happen to me, I would respond this way or that way. Empathy says I become sensitive to who that person is. And I put, for instance, if I was a parent of that 8-year-old that got shot in that room, I was thinking, my child will never have another birthday party. I will never put her in a bed and kiss her goodnight again. I should have known something this morning when I took her to school. I thought about maybe if I kept her another hour, maybe if I had picked her up earlier, and I'll go through the whole process. As I'm feeling that, I'm listening to what that parent is saying, because they will begin saying those kind of things. And I can identify with that. I put myself emotionally in the same place they are. And I allow myself to begin to feel some of the things they're feeling. What blesses us with past experiences, when you had tremendous loss and tragedies in your own life, you don't have to make up stuff. You have a big reservoir of experiences sitting over here that you can tap into your own experience that's similar to that experience and be authentic. That's the key piece. People want you to be real when you deal with them. Real starts by saying, I can't say I've ever had that happen to me. I've never lost an 8-year-old child. I've never been through a divorce. I've never been around when my a loved one got shot and died. I can't feel what you're feeling, but as much as I can, identify with that people. And that person can tell that you're making an effort to listen and to connect with them emotionally. And over time, that helps.
I want to go to the real men don't cry, because I think that's going to be a part of the hurt. That's going to be a part of what expands or causes the hurt to continue. But before I get there, I really would just like to quickly, and you talked about it before, Kamala, but talk to us, Pastor Jones, about some of the dangers. And let's do it this way, because we didn't get in any ads, so Annika is going to kill me. And it's 9:50. Time to swing. But I want to combine two. Christians should not have pain and compartmentalizing stuff. And I know we said a little bit about it, but I want to go back there. What are some of the dangers as a Christian? We, like I said earlier, we were talking about Bible class one last night, and we the idea of mental illness came up, if you remember, and somebody said that schizophrenia is schizophrenia demon possession. And I think that right there is a result of us compartmentalizing stuff. I'm a Christian, and so because I'm a Christian, I'm in this box. You see what I'm saying? What are some of the dangers in Christians shouldn't feel pain and compartmentalizing things?
You have to be very careful that your assumptions are not built on wrong information.
Mm-hmm.
If I've been told and I feel that Christians shouldn't feel pain, the Bible never verifies that.
That's right.
In fact, the Bible talks about trial, talks about pain, says that's going to be. So if I have false expectations, then I am measuring my experiences. Okay, I felt pain. Something's wrong with me. I'm not praying enough. Well, you built your intellectual piece on that which was not factual, and so you're now moving in a direction that makes you feel guilty when you shouldn't feel guilty. The other piece is our false understanding of who God is and what He does, and that has made people bitter and departmentalizing stuff. Is like Kamala said, you that stuff that you set on the side, it's gasoline. it continues to grow. It may stuff and show itself out in other ways. You may become controlling. You may mistreat other people. It comes out in other ways, and one day it's going to explode. And when it explodes, it will devastate you in ways that you cannot begin to articulate. So as we learn how to deal with things a little at a time, and in real time, it helped. One thing that helped me a lot, along with pain and struggles, was learning how to forgive people.
Yeah.
Forgiveness was not just a matter for me of the right thing to do. Forgiveness allowed me to share a lot of baggage and drop it, so I wouldn't have to carry it. I put it on God, and I trust the Lord for the outcomes. And so it's very, very important for me to ask the question: why do I feel the way I feel, and why do I respond the way I respond? Because I might be operating on false information. I call them tapes. My father and others put tapes in my mind that I was not valued. I would never be anybody, and those tapes kept running. And I measured realities by those false tapes. Other Christians had tapes about what God was, and God was rigid, and God was stern in judgment, and it was God who was causing all, like when the storm comes and tears up your house, the insurance calls that blames God for doing that.
That's of God.
That was an act of God. Well, my God doesn't set houses on fire and kill people as an act of God. But if you perceive God in the wrong way, if you got wrong information, then your outcomes will be negative, and your pain will be deeper, and you will hurt people. You'd be like Job. His friends came down to get the encouragement. Now, Job, we know.
Yes.
Your 10 children got killed. Your house was destroyed. All your stuff and stuff.
Be honest with us, man.
You must have been a bad boy. We're your friends. You can come clean. But if you don't come clean, Job, it could get worse than this. How does it get worse than your family gets killed, all your wealth is, and then you got a terminal disease? But Job, I know you're hiding some stuff. In their mind, God was punishing him for the sin he was holding back. And Job had to say, Let me check my record. Let me see. And Job checked his record, could not remember anything he was being punished for. In fact, God started the whole chapter by saying he was a righteous man. He reverenced God, and in God's sight, there's nothing wrong with him. But his crisis was not about him.
Yeah.
His crisis was an argument between the devil. So sometimes we are suffering because of misinformation and wrong expectations. So we have to ask our source, who told you that?
Yeah.
Who lied to you about that? Who lied to you about how life's going to be easy? I had a girl I baptized one time, Pastor, who thought when she became a Christian, her life would smooth out. So when she became a Christian, her husband left her.
Yes.
She lost her job, and she came back and said, Pastor Jones, you lied to me. What? You told me when I got Jesus, I'd have everything. But when I got Jesus, I lost everything. And she was bitter at me and God because her expectation was when she got Jesus, she would get money, her husband would act right, her kids would be fine, she'd get a promotion. But none of that happened. She walked away from God because her expectations was based on the wrong, wasn't based on truth. So a lot of pain comes from our expectations and what we believe.
I think that was very instructive, Kamala. Let me ask you this question. Let me ask us this question. And we don't. The time is. We only have 3 minutes left. But let me ask us this real quick question. As we're going through these turbulent times, as we're going through these troubling times, and these just horrible times, Pastor Jones, I'm gonna ask you to just please take the last 3 minutes, 4 minutes, and please just talk to us about our expectations. What are we, as we go throughout these challenging times, and while we do want for gas prices to come down, and we do want for the housing prices to come down, and we want for things to get better, talk to us about, from your biblical worldview, the times we're living in and how to ride them out. Would you just talk to us about that for a few moments?
Bible talks about trials and temptations and struggles as building perseverance, endurance, and a clear understanding of where God's at. So that as I go through stuff, and the key word is through stuff. I had sickness, I have death, I have crisis, but I look back, I survived it again and again and again. I tried what God said, and it worked. And when it works more and more, I begin to say, the last thing didn't kill me. This thing won't kill me. And the next thing, because the Lord's promises, I will never leave you nor forsake you. I will support you. I won't take my hand off of you. I've watched that happen as an experience. And this is the key. You got to move from biblical stuff that you read and biblical stuff that you lived. And as you live some things and go through some things and survive some things, it builds up in your mind. Well, it's like muscles. You grab a 25 pounds and you work at 25 pounds. After a while, I'm bad, Camilla. I can lift 25 pounds. Well, so you haven't stretched your muscles yet. So I put the 25 pounds down. I pick up the 50 pounds. Oh my God, I'm going to die. Because I worked at 50 pounds after a while. They're as light as the 25 pounds. But when I drop that, I take the 100 pounds. What's happening is I stretch my muscles out, I break them down, and my muscles build up in the difference. And so after a while, my muscles continue to build because they're being stretched. I get buffed. But it took the stretching and the weight to buff me. My faith with God is the same. I've got to go through some things. You can't have a testimony without a test. And you have to recognize that the Bible tells me that God knows my breaking points. and will not allow me to come to a place of my breaking point. So if it comes at me, he must have checked it out before it got to me. And so I quit asking God now why. I now ask God, what you trying to teach me? And when it comes at me, because he's been so consistent, I tell the devil, I don't have the answer, but you're messing with the wrong boy, because my God's going to get on you. So I sit still and allow the Lord to show me about myself and show me about the world around me. Things are not going to get better because we're watching men reject the covering of God and moving away from God's guidance for happiness. And so the consequences of that is I move away from God's formula for happiness and wholeness. I'm going to be more broken and sad. And we're in a world that's going to be more broken and sad. But the God who gave me the guidelines for happiness says, as long as you got me, I'll get you through this. That moves from being a theory to the way to live. And God has never failed me. He never told me that I wouldn't have pain, but he told me I'll go through. And I've gone through so many things. So that with my portfolio of what God has done, when stuff comes at me, it doesn't surprise me anymore. It doesn't scare me. I go, oh dear, why me? No. Now it is, why not me? God wants to use me to prove something and use me to do something. All right. Whatever you want to do with me, I'm your man. Because I know me and God is a winning team that life can't overcome. As long as I stay the course and I'm honest with how I feel. I can't play the game that I'm holy and as a holy man, God's going to take care of it. No. Holiness is wholeness.
Yes.
And God is moving me from a place of brokenness to a place of security, an internal security that my outside circumstance cannot overcome. If that makes sense.
Oh, it made a lot. Not only did it make a lot of sense, come on, there's a lot more.
So much more that
we could talk about. So, Pastor Jones, my prayer is that you'll join us again another time, please, and let's continue this discussion. And one of the reasons, sir, is we didn't really get to Real Men Don't Cry, and where you said it to start. Pain is a blessing, and I wanted to drill down some more on that, on the blessing of being able to feel, being able to to see this stuff happening all around us, and we're not so callous, we're not so cold that we can't feel anything. No, so we didn't get a chance to drill down about that. And then of course the authenticity, but we've been talking about authenticity. I think Dr. Washington did an excellent job.
Yes.
So thank you. So go ahead, sir.
I had to come back sometime because I want to deal with this thing about a blessing. One of the things that scare me is that we become so cold to things around us. That 10 kids get killed, and we go, that's terrible. And then we go to the next movie or turn the channel. Somebody could get burned out down a block from us. And we say, that's terrible. But it no longer causes us to move to action. We feel it for a moment, and then that's them not. And then we feel we have no obligation to meet those needs. So I want to move from sympathy to empathy to compassion to being the solution for somebody.
Yes.
So you see, we have more to talk about.
Yes. We'll do that.
We want to say thank you all so much for coming on, and I think it's safe for us to say that Vivian is going to get the sticker.
I think she's the automatic winner tonight.
Well, I mean, Marilyn, Annika, do you want to spin it, Ann, or what do you want?
Somebody else we've got somebody in the running.
You want to spin it, Ann? That's not paying us any mind.
And the winner is?
We're gonna go with Vivia.
There she comes.
There she comes.
All right. Our names have been entered. Our comments have been entered. Let's see who is going to make the cut tonight.
Sorry, it won't spin because we have to have a name. So the second person.
You know who it is, and it's okay.
But it doesn't pick it
it
up.
won't spin. I get you.
Yeah.
I get you. Okay. All right. So Doc, so the sticker goes to she's laughing at us. All right, so the sticker goes to Vivian. Thank you all so much for joining us tonight. We're so grateful. Those of you who came on late, just go back and watch. It's I knew it was going to be instructive. Knew it was going to be transformational. So would you please go back and watch? For whatever reason, all of these are only coming in as Facebook user. There are no names to it. And so we apologize. We apologize for that. But since Vivian has been with us since 10 o'clock and has been talking to us since 10 o'clock, we're going to send her the sticker. So thank you all so very much for joining us tonight.
Don't forget to join us next time, same place for Monday night with KW. Check out our store.
Before you go, next week is going to be really good.
Yep.
We have a pastor/social worker, John Duke Hall out of Pennsylvania. Mm-hmm. And we're going to talk about a journey through accepting people. Through valuing people, and this is coming out of our whole and the LGBTQ community and people just having different ways of life and different beliefs from us. How do we the word that was used earlier was authentic. How do we authentically value people while maintaining our own spirituality? And so I'm really looking forward. It's going to be a tough conversation, but I'm looking forward to enjoying it with John. I've known him for years, so please come hang with us next week Monday night. Pastor Jones, Dad, thank you so very much for being here. We're grateful.
All right, have a great night, everyone. We will see you next time.
Thanks everybody for joining us. Viv will send you that empowering sticker. Thank you, Pastor Jones.